Hello and welcome to the Wake Up Podcast. I'm Ben Kaysen here with Tyler Shaun, big time guest here in the studio today. Tyler, can you tell us a little bit about what your role is here at Wake Up Pueblo?
So I am one of the two production managers here, which means I oversee a lot of I oversee all the videos that go out basically, and make sure everyone's in line with their schedules in terms of where we're shooting, who do we need there to film, when do we need to get stuff done.
Sure.
And I self-title myself as like a community coordinator, outreach specialist. I don't know. I don't have a proper title for that, but I like to think that I'm very community involved, and a lot of my role here is making sure the community is involved with us as well.
I know. I love to see that. And you've come in. How long have you been full time at Wake Up now?
Oh, I don't even know. What's it been?
Maybe a month.
Today? Maybe 6 weeks.
Maybe 6 weeks.
It might have been. Yeah, first week of October, I think, is when I started. So about 6 weeks.
In that time, you can definitely tell from Tyler being here, like when it comes to our clients as well as us, the community involvement has gone up because you think about it so much. Can you tell me a little bit about why you're so passionate about Pueblo in general?
Well, okay, so that's a long story. To paraphrase though, of why I specifically, like since I got here, we've specifically become community involved is because, so I had a production company before this called Jolly Mule Productions. And that for a long time, that was like a 2-person production company. And then for a while, it was just me, but like everything we did for Jolly Mule was pretty much about the community. Like that's all I did every day was like, I would go to 5 community events, film at all of them, and then figure out how to make cool videos about it and just like support people that I thought were cool and doing cool things.
Yeah.
And so first coming to Wake Up, it was kind of hard to figure out, what am I supposed to be doing here? Which I think is how a lot of us feel, felt. It was like, we have all these talented people, but how do we apply them to their positions, right? So then when I became a production manager and then we started strategizing the team as how to help businesses grow, naturally for me, coming from what I was doing for Jolly Mule, I was like, well, of course you have to get the community involved. And especially in Pueblo. Especially in Pueblo, like word travels so fast. Like we have, it's famous here that it's 2 degrees of separation. Somebody that knows somebody. Like you know everybody because the person next to you knows somebody. Yeah. Right. And like if you want to grow as a business in Pueblo, being community involved for me is vital. And it's all about, and as bad as a rap as Pueblo has had for many years, people will always say that the people in Pueblo are amazing. And I totally agree with that. And so like, what I want to make sure we are doing as a company coming up is that we're amazing people, right? And our businesses can associate with amazing people as well. So I like to take nonprofits and connect them with a business that has hired us to do marketing and figure out how they can mutually benefit from knowing each other. Yeah. And that's what Pueblo's all about, in my opinion.
I like it. And so Tyler, you're a transplant into Pueblo, right?
Technically, yeah. Technically, okay. So I, Pueblo is not the city I was born, but Pueblo is my hometown in my mind. So I'm originally from Emporia, Kansas, which is like a 30,000 person town. Of course, very, very different from Pueblo. And like I went to Catholic school in Emporia when I was there. But the reason we came to Pueblo is because my mom, his name is Cora Zalatel. She's also kind of Pueblo famous in a way, I suppose.
She is.
But so she was the head of marketing at Emporia State University in Kansas. And then in 2001, she got the job for the head of external affairs at CSU Pueblo. So we moved here in 2001 and Pueblo is now my home.
Yeah. And see, Pueblo is your home and you keep coming back to it. I want to talk about this because Tyler, you're a world traveler. You've gone a lot of places. We've talked about it before. I want to talk about that more in the podcast, but like, seriously, you talk about him. He travels all the time and he's gone to, how many countries have you gone to now?
I think the count's 23 now. And 23 or 24. I'm trying to keep it in line with my age, which is 27. So I'm falling behind.
You need to catch up a little bit.
But but COVID's kind of keeping me from being able to keep those numbers up at the time too. So
yeah. So like as a guy who's traveled so much, seen so many things, you always seem to come back to Pueblo. Can you tell me more about like why?
So there's multiple ways you can interpret that, right? It used to be, so like when I was in high school, so my generation was always very self-deprecating towards Pueblo. Or like Pueblo always had a self-deprecating attitude. And like when I graduated from South, which of course is still the number one question, what high school did you go to?
Yeah, it is.
I graduated from South in 2012. And at the time, people thought they had to leave town to be successful. They thought they had to go to CU Boulder. They thought they had to go to Fort Collins, Denver. They had to get out of Pueblo. Yeah. Right. So the people that come back at the time, people looked at those people as people that failed. That they left, tried to succeed, they failed, and came back to Pueblo.
And they're back at Pueblo, yeah.
And for me, it's always been quite the opposite. I've always gone to these faraway places, and a lot of the mentality in Pueblo now even is you don't know how good it is until you leave. And so every time, I would go for months at a time traveling, and I would come back and I would be so thankful to come back to Pueblo and just like sit, see my people, go to a show at Brews, go play soccer on Sunday with the great soccer community that's here. Pueblo was always like a good, safe spot for me to come to, which, you can interpret again that as like settling. Yeah, but that mindset has completely changed in the last 3 or 4 years. Like now, for example, when we launched Wake Up Pueblo and we aligned with Grant Cardone, with these big names, I had those friends that left in high school call me back. They're living in Denver, living in Fort Collins, and they're saying, what's happening in Pueblo? What's going on? Because that's really cool. And then they come back and they go to these places that have only popped up, the Clink Lounge, Brews Ale House, all the downtown development that has happened in the last 3-4 years. I forget that people that left have no idea that stuff has happened. So their
perception is still the old Pueblo.
Yeah. So that self-deprecating reputation that was there when they left, they don't realize that doesn't exist anymore. And then now there was this whole generation of people that have left open nothing but opportunity for the people below them, right? So that's why, especially here at Wake Up, I'm the second oldest guy that's on the team, right? And it's because we have all these young, talented kids who now have an outlet for their creative abilities and for like something to look forward to in terms of a job and career opportunities in town, which is what we didn't have before. Like, and I was a mass commie at CSU Pueblo.
Yeah, same. I
have a fun time telling people I'm a production manager now, and I'm doing quote unquote for those of you that can't see that. But when I was at CSU Pueblo, there was one video I did in class, and my teacher was 90% blind. Right. And he honestly, like Dr. Free, one of my favorite teachers, but like, it's just ironic for me to say that like we only had one video class and my teacher was blind. So like, I didn't even know how to use cameras coming out of CSU Pueblo. I mean, they have PBS, which you can work with there, like to direct shows and things like that. Sure. They have the radio station, Rev 89, of course, which we'll love to see how successful they've been the last few years. You've come through that, of course. And then they have the magazine, the newspaper there.
Yeah, the Today.
Yep. Yeah, the Today. And you can do all those things. But at the time, there was like no place for me to, just use a camera all the time, and no place for me to get a job using a camera all the time.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so that's what's so exciting about Wake Up Pueblo for me. And again, I'm gonna be long-winded in a lot of these answers.
Oh, I love it. I love it, man.
Yeah, feel free to interrupt me at any time.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that sentiment a lot because I found myself this last year, I graduated from CSU Pueblo, Mass Comm, and wanted to do some sort of broadcasting. I was thinking podcasting, sportscasting, and, based on that same mentality you're talking about, my first thought was, okay, there's really nothing in Pueblo, right? I mean, I'm thinking about if someone's going to hire me to do podcasting, if someone's going to hire me to broadcast or do radio or something, it's not going to be in Pueblo, Colorado. So, I expanded my nets out a lot of different places, but then this comes up in Pueblo and I'm like, wow, this is an amazing opportunity in a city that I really love. And it just turns out that way. Like it's basically like just what you were saying, where, that opportunity's there where I don't feel like it was there.
So I'm going to ask you a question. I'm like flipping the script here. I'm going to ask you a question that's going to help segment me into what I want to talk about.
I love it. Yeah, let's do it.
Why did you first use like a microphone? Why did you first do radio?
So I wanted to do sports broadcasting since I was probably 12 or 13 when I kind of realized that, hey, I'm not good enough at baseball to do it pro, and I wanted to be a part of it. And so I got into a microphone because I feel like, it's important to tell stories. It's important to paint the picture of a sports game, right? That was the main thing for me. I started off doing sports, and I've really grown to love podcasting and radio and the other side of it. But for sports, I wanted to be that vessel for someone who wants to listen to their grandson play football and they turn on the radio, and I want to be the guy who's painting the picture of their grandson making the massive tackle, right? I want to be that guy. I want to help that out. So that was kind of the start of it for me.
Okay, well, so I'm going to use
that segue?
I'm going to segue that into, what I was thinking about is like why, one, to go from Pueblo, like why have I stayed in Pueblo? To two, why did I pick up a camera?
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. Well, so I can involve traveling in like this part of the story, but I'm gonna skip that for now. The reason I stayed in Pueblo originally with a camera, like the combination of the two, was I had just finished, to paraphrase, I've been traveling for a few years, and working in other places. And I had just come back and I was sitting in Pueblo for like 2-3 months with no plan. Like I was just happy to hang out with my mom for the holidays.
Sure.
I had some money, you know, just like sit on for a bit. And I was just hanging out in town. And I actually went and saw my friend's band, Beyond Bridges is the name of the band. It's a local band here in Pueblo. My best friend, like one of my best friends at the time, was Ado Hernandez. He's the lead singer of the band. I went and saw them play at Brews, which Brews, when I left Pueblo, was the first year Brews is open. Brews had opened. And the owner of Brews is the lead guitarist in that band as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's interesting.
So I had spent a lot of time, you know, there for the building of Brews.
Yeah. So you'd known him before he had owned the...
Yeah, and only to see it flourish while I was gone, and then come back, and you know, it was one of the first times in Pueblo we had like craft beer and live music at a dedicated concert venue, right?
Yeah.
And so I saw them play for the first time at Brews since I'd been back from traveling, and I remember the moment I was watching them, and I was just like, oh my gosh. Like you guys are very, very, very talented.
Yeah.
You know, like I haven't seen you play in a year, but the improvement you've made in a year, like this is very, very professional.
It's like, this is legit.
Guys are going somewhere. And so I told Ado the next day, I was like, I'm buying a camera tomorrow and I'm just going to start shooting bands. Cause I had no plan. I had no plan for what I was going to do.
Yeah.
I had made some travel videos and stuff like that. I had always liked making videos, but I could never do it in a professional scale by any means. But, yeah, a day after seeing them play, I bought a $300 camera and I started hanging out with bands all the time, anytime. Was just hanging out with bands.
Yeah.
And I could go into like the next 6 months of what that looked like, but that's when I first picked up a camera and chose to stay in Pueblo with a camera. And Ado is definitely a testament to that, where he was like, if you stay in Pueblo, like the opportunities that you have here are going to be endless. You know, in terms of what you want to do. And we can do that together. And so that's why I hope he listens to this and he's got a big old blush on his face right now.
Yeah.
Because we always bring that up. We've disconnected a little bit recently, but I shot his wedding like a month or two ago.
Oh, cool.
But we always remember that conversation where I was thinking about going to Denver, you know, and trying to start a company there or do whatever it may be, or keep traveling. You know, I was just kind of a restless soul at the time.
Sure.
But he was like, I want you to stay in Pueblo because, you know, you can do it here. And I look on that very fondly, speaking back, you know, three years awesome. Later now. So it's been a cool ride in terms of that.
That is so cool, man. Yeah. So you stayed in Pueblo at that point to shoot bands. So can you run me like what was going through your mind during that time where you were in the limbo? Like, yeah.
In the time before I was shooting bands, or like after I decided?
Like while you were shooting bands. Okay.
So while shooting bands, anyone that's worked in the music industry, musicians have no money unless they're like huge names, right?
Sure.
So, I mean, the main bands I was shooting was Beyond Bridges and Project 432, both local bands, but those are my friends. Yeah. Like, or Chivalry, which is Dylan Trimble's band, Marietta Dolls, another local band. These are all bands that I've like kept up with over the years, but those were just my best friends.
Yeah.
You know, and so one, I get to hang out with them all the time. But two, like the more I broadcast them, like make videos for them, the bigger venues they can book.
Yeah.
The more shows we get to go to. So like in a typical week, Beyond Bridges, Project 432, the two main bands I was shooting for, would play, you know, 4 or 5 shows in a week. And so 4 or 5 days a week, I would go shoot a concert at a different venue every night, just to get footage, hang out with my friends. But then that led into, you know, Project 432 booked a festival in Utah called Reggae Rise Up. And they're like, hey, do we want to make a video? So I went with them to Reggae Rise. It was the first time I traveled to go shoot a festival with the bands. And then, of course, that leads into, like, the biggest acts I'm proudest of shooting is, like, we shot the Expendables here in town. I shot them up in Denver, which they're famous for their songs like Sacrifice and Pack This Bowl for Two. If you know much about the reggae scene, a lot of what I was shooting was reggae rock type bands. And like Hyrie came to Brews, a really, really huge band in the reggae industry. And I just had complete access to like shoot these bands. Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And because, you know, one, I wasn't good enough to get paid at the time. Like I was not, I would maybe I would charge $50 to like make a promo that spent me like 5-6 hours to make for people. Right.
Sure.
But that's how you do it.
You got to build the skill.
Yeah. Just to get started. It's like, and I'm shooting my friends. I'm like getting to shoot at these cool venues, but of course I had to get a job in the daytime. So my job through college was cooking pizza at Angelo's. Like that's
nice.
Yeah. Like I have a funny relationship with them because because I'm a good worker, I was allowed to go in there for like 4 or 5 months at a time. And because of their turnover rate, of course, like in a kitchen at a restaurant, there's a large turnover rate.
Sure.
And not a super ton of trustworthy people consistently come through. So like I could always go work at Angelo's for 5-6 months, save up money, and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to Asia. You know, like I'm going to Asia.
Come back and it still be there.
Yeah, and then I'm like, okay, I have no money. Like I really need to get some stuff going. So in that,
that's cool.
So in that first 6 months, shooting bands, like when I was starting to get better and better every week, I was shooting bigger bands every week. I was getting more busy. I was actually starting to get paid doing video stuff. It was the first time working off and on 6 years at Angelo's, I started to resent the job. And it was because when you're working in the kitchen, you can't open up another tab on the computer and work on your side business. You know, if I had been working like a desk job,
you could have done something.
I could have been editing some videos, you know, every 30 minutes, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But no, I have greasy hands. I'm covered in flour.
You're not gonna be able to go.
And again, I was doing a job that I always liked. And then when I was doing that job, I started to be like, I really wish I was doing my video stuff right now. Therefore, resenting the job. I was starting to be like, this job is preventing me from doing what I want. And I knew I would continue to go back to that job. Because like I said, I worked it through college. Before I went to Europe the first time, I just worked there. I came back from Europe, you know, I just worked there for like 5-6 months, 3-4 months at a time. Sure. I've done this like 6 times. I quit that place 6 times, right?
But they always want you back.
Well, without burning bridges.
I get that.
You shouldn't burn any bridge unless you don't want to go back to that job.
Yeah.
And this was the first time I quit, and I was like, please don't hire me back.
Okay, so that's it for the YouTube version of our interview with Tyler Schown. However, we have a full version of it that's going out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. The link is in the description below. Be sure to go check that out. You can catch the second half of this interview. Tyler keeps on talking about some really amazing stuff. You don't want to miss that. So if you'll go check that out, that would be fantastic. You can catch that whole thing as well as the other Wake Up podcasts we've done. We've done one with Nick Folletta, Jacob Rivera here at work, as well as a few other members of our community. You don't want to miss those, and more are coming every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday right here on Wake Up Podcasting. So go check those out and keep your eye out for the rest of our Wake Up stuff. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and go check out the rest of our podcasts. Thank you.